on the source.
There are others who were involved in this.
Yes.
Who conspired with him. So while I agree, thank you for doing something, let's send the real message. You can't even get him if you did not stop it, you are party to it. And I'm concerned about that. Good evening, this is Dr. Curry.
This is Colby Owens.
And welcome to The Source. Colby, it is just so much going on right now. We always start off our show by talking about the local news, especially the shootings and murders that may have occurred in our city. Not that we are proud of it because we really don't want any of this, but we want to keep the community updated. We have 2 deaths that occurred this week on Monday and Tuesday, one being a 24-year-old and the other one being a 27-year-old. Help me to get some content to this.
Yeah, so the first one was actually over here in the Southbridge community. A 24-year-old was fatally shot Monday night, this past Monday night. The shots are said to happen around 8:30, 8:20 p.m. in the 400 block of South Clayton Street. And when he arrived at the local hospital, he was able to get to the local hospital, but unfortunately he passed away while at the hospital. And that is still under investigation right now.
They don't know who took him to the hospital?
No.
Okay.
So it's not clear. They weren't clear on if he transported himself or not. But then also on Tuesday night, we had a 27-year-old who was shot and killed over by like the Amtrak lines over there by Howard Young Prison. Right. And again, that happened in the 1200 block of East 13th Street at about 10:15. While the police have identified the 24-year-old man, they have not identified the 27-year-old man who was shot the next night. So again, these are 2 shootings back to back. The 27-year-old was taken to the hospital, but then later died of his injury.
Now, this happened on Tuesday. The recording of our show is on Thursday, and I have not seen anything yet to share what the 27-year-old's name is. Is it that he was homeless, or why would they not be able to identify who the 27-year-old is?
I think they just haven't been able to get in contact with Netza family, Netza kin yet.
Wow.
So that can be a very difficult process as well, too. So they may have his identity at this point, but just hasn't released it to the public.
Have you heard of any plans that maybe the city police department is devising to try to deal with some of the crime? I've seen an uptick in them being present and visible, but have you seen any plans or heard of any plans that maybe the city is doing to help get us a little bit safer? A lot of stuff is happening in some circles, but have you heard anything?
I have not, unfortunately. Again, from what I've heard is that shootings are down. We're below what it was a few years ago. Again, I think that one shooting is one too many. Right. But again, the administration has taken a stance that the crime levels are down.
But the only thing, say that to a family member who just lost a loved one. Yeah. You know, the crime levels are down. I mean, I think while they may be statistically, but the problem is some of this, like you're finding people dead, a person gets shot. It wasn't totally in the midnight hour. It was still early when the 24-year-old here in Southbridge was killed, gunned down and killed. I just don't understand why we don't know what could be causing some of this trauma.
Yeah. And again, you know, it's not going to end if you don't have a plan in place, an action plan. So actually taking steps to resolve some of this gun violence. And you can't just write everything off as, oh, it's gang violence or back and forth. Again, there is a serious crisis going on in the city of Wilmington when it comes to gun violence. And I think you have to take some very serious steps to really addressing it. And we have not seen that.
Well, I guess now to just push back a little bit, sometimes some of the administrators are concerned that pushing back means becoming so forceful that you violate people's rights. That's not what you're saying,
No,
or is that what you're
not.
saying?
Absolutely not. We don't need to go back to practices like stop and frisk. We don't need to be like the city of New York, who's now deploying robo-cops all over the city. We don't need mass surveillance and stuff like that. I think we need to invest in intervention programs. We need to invest in alternatives to just law enforcement as well, too. Listen, there's a lot of young people who've been through the justice system, who want to make a difference, who want to change and give back to their community, talk to some of these younger boys and girls at this point right now about, why they should be putting down the guns, right? And why we should have more peace. And if there is a disagreement, trying to come up with a solution to make sure things are cool. So again, you have to invest in different thinking, right? So you can't just police your way out of anything. And I think that's one of the things they've been trying to do for decades. And we've seen record numbers still. You can't just keep throwing money at something. You actually have to have a true plan.
Yeah. And it's interesting because most of the violence of this nature happens in the poor communities. Whereas you go to certain other areas, it's not that way, or a plan may have been already devised if this was happening in another district. Or and I did note that here in Southbridge, there was the police department did do a walk through the community. They trying to spiff up their presence here. We can't stop everything from happening, and I want to make sure that's clear. No one wants to even assume that we can just stop everything from happening. But some of the preventive things that Colby was just talking about, I think we really need to start looking into. Instead of spending a lot of money on a new gun, how about we try to fund some of these projects where we have some young people who have been through the system, who understand some of the struggles that some of the young people are going through. Maybe if we can invest in them to be mentors and to come in the community and who lives in the community, it may make a world of a difference.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and then moving on from that, something happened this week, Colby, that kind of it didn't start this week, but I saw it again, where the teenager was crying for his mom, but it's like a twist to that. I mean, it started. I mean, it is a disgrace the way this state trooper just ran roughshod against the system and busted in the systems and found out where these kids lived at, and
he was a vigilante.
Best wording.
It's plain and simple. Officer or Trooper Dempsey, should never be able to be a cop ever again. Like I said, and needs to be arrested, charged, and thrown in jail for assault of not just this young 15-year-old, but there was also a 17-year-old African-American kid who he harassed and held captive for hours on end before going and assaulting the 15-year-old. They illegally entered a 17-year-old African-American's house, arrested him, held him captive in the back of a police car with the heat on full blast when it was one of the hottest days of the year, and interrogated him in the back of the police car, believing that this 17-year-old knew who this 15-year-old was and the 15-year-old's friends. The 17-year-old had no interaction with these other kids. Him and the officer had some exchange of words the week before. So he
also the 17-year-old and the officer had words, and that's why he immediately thought it was him.
Right, because he didn't want the 17-year-old in his neighborhood when the 17-year-old was walking through the prior week. So that's why he had one of his friends on the Ellesmere Police Department take him home that time. That's how they were able to get his address, and they went right there. Young man did the right thing. He FaceTimed his mom when he saw the cops were outside. When they opened the door, they didn't even talk to him. They went straight in, grabbed him up, threw him on the ground, threw him outside, and then in the back of the police car.
Are you serious?
Then, as they were releasing him, mom's there, neighbors there, they're all complaining. They're calling different people, trying to figure out what's going on. They said that him and his friend who was in his car had a gun on them.
Oh, wow.
Well, come to find out, the gun that they had on them was just a water gun. It literally was a orange and green water gun.
Couldn't even look like a real gun, right?
No.
Okay.
So then they released them, and then a few minutes later, he got the video from the doorbell where it was the teens, and somehow he was able to go with the Ellesmere police, figure out where these kids live, pulled up on these kids, and you see if you choose to watch the video, I will say it's very graphic.
Yeah, I saw it today.
He assaults this 15-year-old, and look, was the 15-year-old wrong? Yes. Was they playing an innocent game that people have been playing for years?
Even I played.
Yes. The only difference is we have Ring cameras now, right? Yeah. It makes it harder. Should he have kicked the door? No. You usually ring the doorbell or you just beat on the door. But to assault this kid and leave him so beat up and abused that he's in the hospital, all types of bruises, lacerations on his face and everything. Yeah. This officer and the Ellesmere police officers who went with him were vigilantes, and it's no place for that here in Delaware. All of them need to lose their badge. All of them need to be in jail, and they need to be made an example of.
Yeah, well, you said in Delaware, it's never a place for them in this
anywhere,
country.
Yeah.
That's another country that do that kind of things. But as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that they connected together. The Ellesmere Police Department as well as the state police department came together, and they were able to get the address, and they were able to work together. For those of you who want to see the video, it is very graphic, so I would ask that you be very mindful and careful when viewing it. You can go to Delaware Online. I think that's where it was, and you can click on it, and there's two parts to it. You can see how this young 15-year-old is crying hard for his mother. Mom, and then at one point, what got me, Colby, is at one point in the video, as he's shoved into the police car, he says, please tell me, what did I do wrong? They never advised him of his rights. Yeah. They never advised him of what he did wrong. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who say we only cover when it's an African American, this was a Caucasian little young brother. And I'm concerned whenever we have police officers who are Vanties, who feel they can do what they want to do, and they were in cahoots together. And that's what bothered me. Mm-hmm. It started with the African American young man. And how dare them? Where is the mindset? Yeah. To put a young kid, to torture him and put him in a car and turn the heat up. Where are their minds at? And
mind you, it was like 97, 98 that day already, right? Yeah. So to sit in the back, again, you're like, I turn the heat on all the time. No, to sit in the back of a police car for 4 hours. Yeah. With the heat on blast, it's already in the 90s. That's insane. Yeah, and then his blood is rising because you being arrested, don't know what you're arrested for. So it's not like it's a cool, calm, you sit in a sauna. No. It's not that day. It's a day where literally I don't know what's going on. What is he doing? I mean, this guy, they're going to kill him. And if he had a bad heart, they would have killed him. Yep. And we never travel and traffic in the woulda couldas, but the woulda and the coulda could have been that. He could have had a heart condition. He could have had an asthma issue and would have died. And then this family would have lost their loved one just the same as the 15-year-old who were playing this game, hit a door, ran, and he probably forgot all about it because he kept saying, what did I do? Because at the level of all the cops being there, him being shoved to the ground and treated that way, you would have thought he killed 20 people, went into a school and did something inappropriate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So it's a shame. And again, I do, hats off to the AG from coming out. And that was a very powerful message she sent out at her press conference. the other day. But again, when we see officers commit crimes like this, this is why the calls for reform to our police, our policing laws
this
here,
is a mentality issue.
Is why we keep saying it. And again, it's why so many community members lack the faith in the police to reform themselves, because it is a mentality, right? It's you had those other officers who, instead of speaking up saying you're going too far, they went along with it.
Yeah, but you said, and I agree, hats off to the Attorney General for going as far as she gone, because normally it doesn't go that far. But I still, and correct me, don't let me be wrong, and the people say, well, he's wrong. The only person she's charging is the main person.
Correct.
That is not fair.
Correct.
There are others who were involved in this.
Yes.
Who conspired with him. So while I agree, thank you for doing something, let's send the real message. You can't even get him if you did not stop it, you're a party to it. And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that Ellesmere Police got off.
Well, we know about Ellesmere Police.
Yeah, we do.
They don't like black and brown people.
Oh.
They anything. They think they're cowboys out there. Love writing. They got in trouble for the illegal tickets. Remember, they were giving people tickets for going 1 mile over, setting up illegal speed traps, hiding where you're not supposed to be, camouflage and all this other stuff. Ellesmere Police has a long history of breaking the law because they think they're above it.
Well, at some point, thanks to the Attorney General for dealing with this one police officer. Is he still a trooper? Have they fired him yet? Do we know
I
that?
think he had to relinquish the title once he was charged.
Okay, so he had to relinquish.
But I don't know if they officially fired him or he retired or resigned first.
Because see, those things matter to people like me, because I'm paying attention. If they fired him, it's different than him retiring. Him retiring means I can go away with my pension. Them firing him means your pension is now gone.
Right.
And that's why when I'm hearing all the details, I try to figure out what are they doing. But they did charge him. I don't know what the state is involved. If you get involved in a felony, whether or not you lose your pension and things of that nature. But I just wanted to know exactly what happened with that scenario. The last thing I want to bring up for this segment, Colby, is something that happened at a bakery on Kirkwood Highway. It's bothering me because later on today on this show, and for those of you who are watching, please stay tuned for later. We're going to talk about the state of America and the state of our matter of fact. Before I go into that, let me just deal with this. Is America crime infested because of the liberals? Let's put it that way. I was trying to find a better way of saying this, but I know that you are a liberal, but the word is out, and it's getting out strong, Colby, that Democratic cities, especially the larger ones, are really infested with crime, and a lot of it has to do with the calls for this. I'm not saying this is not my position, but this is what I'm told and reading. Because of the calls for defunding the police, because of the calls for whenever police try to do their job, they're being persecuted quickly. So
here's a few things with that. One, almost no police departments lost funding from 2020 to 2023. A lot of them actually received additional funding. Was there some reallocation of some money? Yes, but it still stayed within that police department. So the whole thing of saying defund the police, calls to higher crime rates? No, absolutely not. What is causing these crime rates, period, is it's crimes of proximity, right? So if I live in a 2-block radius of you, it's more likely something may happen than if I live out in the country where it's 2 miles between us, right? Now, when you look at things, and that's the difference, right? We all know that more city and urban settings are usually more democratic, right? But if you look at most of these states, they are run by Republicans, right? Yes, the city has some money to address it, but a lot of the programs also need state dollars. And since the Republicans have strategically taken over a lot of these states and have come up with the idea that they're not going to invest in infrastructure, they're not going to invest in cities, they're going to pull that money back to be conservative with the dollars, right? You've seen crime rates going up. Now, this whole strategy of taking over state general assemblies, school boards, and all this other stuff started under President Obama. They were extremely mad that how dare a black man think he can run for president and then have the nerve to win. That's what started this plan, and this is what started this division as well too. Now you have cities are getting less funding. Another prime example, look at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, the Republicans have we've had the governor's office, Democrats have the governor's office, but they've controlled the state senate, state house. We just flipped the state house. We have a black woman as speaker, but they still control the state senate. If you look at their roads up there, and everyone makes fun of Philadelphia's potholes everywhere, right? That's state. They can't even get money to fix their potholes. They can't get money to address the gun violence that is going on there. And, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit more about gun violence in my segment, but that's what we're dealing with. And until we get over this hyper-partisan time in America that we're at right now, I don't see any solutions coming forth.
So you do not believe that because we're asking for human rights to be protected is the reason why crime is increasing in America's cities?
No, absolutely not.
And the reason why I bring that up to all of you who are watching us today is because that is what the new narrative is trying to be. You asked for them. You remember when when 45 said, "Why are you so nice to them? Just shove them in the car. Don't put their hand on them. Bump the head against it." They believe that if we can beat you into submission, we'll have better cities.
And here's the thing, especially when it comes to black people, we've been asking for our human rights and civil rights to be respected for over 400 years. This is nothing new, right? It's just we have technology. We could tweet it out. We could put it on Facebook. We can, you know, anyone can start a podcast to talk about it. Yeah, don't let that narrative fool you. We've been asking for the same thing for years. Long before Dr. King and Malcolm X and Ella Baker, and long after them.
Right.
And probably long after me.
It appears that instead of working together, we're getting an excuse. You won't let me smack you, so therefore I can't control you.
Right.
So therefore, since I can't control you by smacking you, you got all this crime. You got all this stuff going on. But I do want our community to start really looking. I was in Dunkin' Donuts just this week, and a lady said to me, she said, you know, Pastor Curry, I look at your show every day, and you know, you get way more PR than I get. So they talk about Kobe quite often. But she said to me, she said, we really got to find a way to make sure that we do not let anyone use that as an excuse, especially on the city level.
Yeah.
They're saying that the city can do more, can be better, but it cannot do it as long as the mindset is we just need to do certain things well.
Yeah.
And not deal with the totality. Look, today we're going to have a concluding segment where we're going to talk about the politics and the state of the politics. And I want you to stay tuned for that. So we'll be right back.
Tune in at 8 a.m. every Sunday for our worship services. Join us at 9 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live by typing Zion Fair Baptist Church. We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
And we're back. Well, Colby, what's going on in the Colby politics, the Colby corner on this week?
Yeah, so first, I want to talk about a new bipartisan bill that was introduced by our Congresswoman, Lisa Blunt Rochester. And it comes at a time that marks a very difficult period in her life. So earlier this week, it marked 9 years since the passing of her husband, Charles Rochester. And today, or not today, on Wednesday, she introduced the Charles Rochester Blood Clot Prevention and Treatment Act. She named the bill after her husband, who had tore his Achilles tendon playing a pickup game of basketball. And it was before a business meeting. And I believe he was on a plane, and the blood clot traveled to his heart and lungs, and he passed away at the age of 52. Again, this bill looks to bring more preventative measures to addressing blood clots, so that there's not another Charles and stuff like that. One person dies of a blood clot in America every 6 minutes.
Wow.
Which is very concerning.
Yes.
We know that we've lost friends here, including former Councilwoman Rashina Ditson, to this. Again, it's going to direct the CDC, the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, to launch a national campaign to increase public awareness of blood clot signs, symptoms, and would establish an advisory committee to help streamline this effective diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of blood clots and pulmonary embolisms for individuals. Again, this is people who are at risk of this as of right now are elderly, women during or just after pregnancy, and those who have family with a strong history of blood clots. This can also arise in individuals who have certain cancers, or who have recently gone through an injury or blunt force trauma to your body as well too. So please be on the lookout for more information to come about that. We will share more information as we go forward as well too.
Now, her goal with this piece of legislation is to make it more aware, or to put into place something.
So it's both, right? Okay. So the advisory committee will provide the information, the recommendations, the advice to the Secretary of Health and Human Services regarding programs, policies, research to promote a more effective diagnosis, treatment, and preventative of both the blood clots and pulmonary embolisms. The second part of it is the public awareness through the CDC to conduct a awareness campaign, so that individuals can also be aware of what some of the symptoms are, because if you don't know, you're at a higher risk, right? And just, again, improve the understanding of who and how many Americans are impacted by blood clots, and conduct a study in detecting and monitoring them across our entire population.
Gotcha.
So again, this is a bipartisan bill. She introduced it with Representative Paul Tonko from New York 20th District, who's a Democrat, Dr. Larry Bushcone, Indiana 8th District, Republican, and Dr. Michael Burgos, Texas 26th District, and he's a Republican. So it shows that, it's good working relationship. Right. Hopefully this bill makes it across the finish line in the House so that they can get it over to the Senate, and hopefully it passes with 60 votes minimum.
Good.
But staying in line with some bills that were introduced this week, another friend of mine's and someone who I truly admire. She used to be the state party chair of Illinois, so I really got to work with her as the vice chair of Delaware. And her and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester consider themselves sisters. But Congresswoman Robin Kelly from Illinois, she represents parts of Chicago, the 2nd District there, along with this U.S. Senator from Illinois, Dick Durbin, who's the majority whip in the Senate, introduced the Care for Moms Act. And again, the full bill supports the maternal health workforce, promotes access to prenatal and postpartum care, provides resources that moms and babies need to thrive, and then includes establishing a state-based prenatal quality collaborative grant program, establishing regional centers of excellency to tackle the implicit biases and promote cultures of competency among health professionals, supports federal efforts to grow and diversify doula workforce, expand Medicare coverage for postpartum in all 50 states for mothers, establish grants for rural mobile units, requires a 90-day proof notification from the Health and Human Services for hospitals, unit closures, obstetric unit closures. Sorry about that. I butchered that word. Extending Medicaid and CHIP to oral health coverage for pregnant and postpartum women, and extending WIC benefits for postpartum and breastfeeding women for 2 years. We especially know how much formula costs now. There was a shortage at a point. There's still kind of a shortage there. So again, this bill is just looking to help move the needle a little bit more. It's looking to address both this issue as both mortality and morbidity continues to rise across the United States. And just to break it down, mortality is death, and morbidity is the illness that comes also as well. So again, this bill is looking to move hopefully quickly, but also to really address a key concern here.
Okay.
But next, I'm going to talk about one last thing, and that's a potential government shutdown. Now, by the time this show airs, we may already be in a shutdown. Shutdown may be averted. We won't know until, as a nation, Sunday morning at 12:01. But as of right now, on Thursday, they are pushing forth 2 different bills: the House-led bill, the Senate-held bill. Certain Republican senators and our favorite former Democratic senator, now independent, Kristen Sinema, are actually working to amend the Senate bill, the Senate funding resolution, to take out or to put in more money for the border crisis, while the Republicans on the House side are actively fighting against any additional funding going to Ukraine and their war over there. And I think they have really put out this narrative that this money going to Ukraine could really help here in America and in homelessness here. But it's funny because any of the alternative proposals don't include addressing homelessness here. So
called opportunists.
Right, exactly. So again, they have until midnight on Saturday to get legislation past both chambers into the president's desk to sign.
What's your prediction?
To avert. I think we're going into a shutdown.
Okay.
And
I
again,
do too. So if you want to know what mine is, I think we're going into a shutdown.
And again, a shutdown doesn't just affect the federal workers, right? It affects our military. It affects our veterans who get their pensions as well too. So a lot of people are going to be affected by this, but you know who's not affected by this?
Those who's supposed to make sure they take care of the budget.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They will still get their paychecks.
And that was what I was going to ask you. What can we do? What kind of pressure can we as citizens put on our national officers, our national delegation, the Congress as well as the Senate, to say, hey, I want a bill. I want a bill that says that since it is your primary job, especially the House, it's their primary job to make sure to handle the purse of America. If you cannot handle the purse of America, you suffer with everybody else.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
So there has been a few bills introduced by Democrats, but they don't get support at all. But again, reaching out to them. Now, I will commend our Delaware people here. They usually donate their salaries. I know Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester donates her paycheck during that time. Whenever there is a shutdown, to funds here that are opened up for federal workers and stuff like that, to make sure that they can still pay their bills, get groceries and stuff like that. But they're not getting their full paid salary.
I think there will be a different level of urgency when they know now a lot of those senators are rich. Oh, yeah. So they can survive, but they don't want none of their money taken from them.
Correct.
So my concern is when they have no interest in solving this. Like you see those hard right wingers, they if they knew their check was not going to come forward, there would be a solution.
Yep.
They would not be standing out to the level they are. And for us to sit back constantly and let this happen is a disgrace. Mm-hmm. Because this is terrible. And how you said you can't get any Republican support. I bet you if we put it on the floor and let that be right here now when the election is coming in 24, I think you will get more support than we think. But the problem is, do you know who put that on the floor?
Not off the top of my head,
okay.
But it's been introduced over the last decade, different times. And again, I know notices have gone out to certain federal employees, letting them know that they may temporarily be furloughed. So, the White House and the Biden administration are preparing for a shutdown. This it's sad that you have people who want to play political games. It's very sad that they disregard all the hard work that goes in to making this country run. And
they don't care, because at the end of the day, my interest is like the person holding up all those military people. It's like, yes. I don't care. I ain't got no skin in the game.
And we finally have a new chief of staff, joint chief of staff, and I believe head of the Navy as well too. They allowed that one to move forward.
Do you remember what the vote was on that?
No, I don't. Okay. But I know it was overwhelming. Yeah. It was only like 8 or less than 10 who voted against.
Right.
The Alabama senator who lives in Florida, who has no political knowledge, just knows how to call plays for football. And this is coming from someone who loves football. Honestly, he wasn't even that good of a football coach. But he is the U.S. senator. He's the senator that the people of Alabama chose over a U.S. Civil rights attorney who prosecuted the people who killed the 4 girls down in Alabama, Doug Jones, who is arguably one of my favorite people who've ever served in the Senate over the years. No disrespect to anyone who's there currently, but that's who the Alabamians chose. And now he is, because of his lack of understanding of how government works and how our military works, what he's trying to do is say that he's standing on the side of our brave men and women, but what he's doing is hurting the strategic leadership of our military and creating creating a weaker standpoint for us.
And he doesn't even live in
no, he lives in Florida.
Right. I just want to keep saying that so that those who are watching.
He's the 3rd senator of Florida.
Yeah, and let me ask this question, since you went there. There was a Supreme Court decision made about the maps.
Yes.
And they're defiant.
Yes. So there was the Supreme Court, shockingly.
Yes.
With Roberts and Kavanaugh, or Gorsuch, joining the 3 liberals, stating that there has to be a second African-American district drawn in Alabama. This also had implementations in other states as well too, but it was Alabama's that made it to the Supreme Court level. That gave them time to redraw the districts. They only draw 1 majority black district, one that's it's close, it's almost half and half, and sent it back and thought they were good. And the Supreme Court came back and said, you're wrong. Y'all didn't do what we said do. So now we're gonna have to bring in a special map drawer to draw the districts for y'all, and that's going to be the map that gets adopted. We had this same problem in North Carolina leading up to the 2020 election, in 2018, and the same in Pennsylvania as well too. That led to additional three new Democrats being elected in Pennsylvania leading up to 2018. So again, even though they draw these maps every 10 years, a lot of them stay in litigation so long that by the time we get a new map, it's time to draw maps again. So I believe 2024, you will see a new map in Alabama. You will see a new map in Louisiana. It is a very small window that you may see a new one in Florida. I think the rest of the states, in New York, may be a very small window as well too. The rest of the states you may not see until 2026. I know other states that are included in that is North Carolina, Ohio, and there's one other, I believe it's Kansas or Nebraska, one of them. But again, there's still some litigation going on. South Carolina has probably the least amount of chance of changing,
Wow. It's just so much going on, but the government shutdown is where we started at. And
yes.
I wanted to make sure that I just threw that other one in
yes.
there because it's just showing you how people are not invested.
Again, it's approximately 2 million federal workers, right, will be impacted by this, and 1.3 million active duty troops will be affected by this shutdown. Again, some agencies, like I said, had already started notifying potential funding lapse, furloughs going on, and everything like that.
What about the postal service?
That will definitely be affected as well.
So I want sometimes you ask, why is he asking these type of questions? I asked that question because I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure you understand that you may not be a government worker, but if you're waiting for a check in the mail, if they're on strike, who's going to deliver that check?
Yeah.
So you may not be a federal worker, but you need your mail. Yes. You need your mail. So I just want to make sure I'm throwing out enough information to make sure people understand what they're doing in Washington is serious, and the games they play, it affects the poor communities, and that's just not good.
Yeah, and it's sad to see these chess games being played.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
New guests, new conversations, new stories. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. Grab your cup of coffee and tune in with Dr. Curry for our weekly episodes of Coffee with Curry.
And we're back. Before we get into the state of politics, Colby, which I promised our audience that we would certainly tackle, there's something with President Biden. We talked about violence in the city, and tell us a little bit about the gun violence prevention office.
Yes. So earlier last week, they had an amazing ceremony in the Rose Garden where they publicly announced the executive order to establish the White House Office of Violence Prevention to reduce gun violence that's ravaging our communities across the country, look at key executive and legislative action that can be taken to save lives. This idea was really pushed by the young generation who's called the lockdown generation, led by people like David Frost, Emma Gonzalez, and Maxwell Frost. And Maxwell Frost, the first policy and advocacy director for March for Our Lives, is also the first Gen Zer to serve in Congress. He's 25 years old. I believe he's about to turn 26. I remember when that campaign first started, and we were all on a team meeting and everything, and we were reading all the comments people were saying when they got wind that he may run for Congress. Oh, no young person will ever be able to run and win, and he won't be able to get anything done. And now we have the first ever Office of Violence Prevention working with the president, who stood at March for Our Lives here in Delaware and made that promise to us back then when we talked with him. Now, with this is, it goes along with the signing of the Better Bipartisan Safety Community Act. It's the most significant gun violence prevention legislation in nearly 30 years. And it's, looking to get the guns out of the hands of individuals who are 21 and under, prohibit purchasing of firearms, empowering the Justice Department, new authorities to prosecute firearm traffickers, improving the access to mental health services in our schools for young people who deal with trauma and grief resulting from gun violence, and investing in community intervention programs.
It comes with money?
It comes with money.
Okay.
And again, why they announced all this, they continued their calls, and especially Biden, of banning assault weapon and high capacity magazines, assault weapons, requiring safe storage for firearms, requiring background checks, universal background checks for all gun sales, eliminating gun manufacturer immunity from liability, and again, enacting a safer American plan, which would pit more people to hold. It would create more community policing. It would invest in gun violence prevention and intervention, and make sure that individuals who are committing crimes on our streets are being held accountable for their actions.
That's good. And I hope that once it gets good and moving, that those cities that are struggling grab hold to that office and see what resources are available and utilize it for those purposes. For example, if they have more mental health services, then they get the money and use it for mental health and not for other things that they really want to augment. Well, Colby, before we call it a quits today, I want to really talk a little bit about the state of politics, because you have two parties. You have the Democratic Party in America and you have the Republican Party. The Republican Party was at some point standing for law of order, rule of law. The Democratic Party was more for the humanitarian side of the house. I don't want to act like I'm the authority in this, but it seems like we're sending mixed messages. And today, I just want, as people are watching us, I'm trying to get a feel, because I'm watching some of the policies of the local, because most of the people watching us are more in tune with the local than they are with the national. We have right now, the governor's seat is going to be vacant. We have the county exec seat will be vacant. Several seats, and when I say vacant, that means it's up for that person cannot run again.
Correct.
Okay, and then we have other seats, but people can run again. We have not heard yet whether or not our current mayor will be running for re-election. We heard some rumors that I don't know if you heard this rumor, but I heard a rumor that maybe the governor may even run for the city of Wilmington. I don't know, and that would be really interesting, because governor, city, but it is what it is. Sometimes when people want to keep power, they do what they have to do. But let me ask this question: what is going on first with the Republican Party, in your opinion?
So I think the Republican Party is fractured right now. You saw that in 2010, and it's just grown with the Tea Party extremists who have come in and kind of taken it over. I know they probably say that about progressives with the Democratic Party, but if you look at the policies that are being pushed, you literally just had someone introduce a bill to attack any state or city that is pitting up money for reparations. They like crafting this narrative that if you're coming over the border, that you're a dangerous person, right? Not the fact that you're fleeing from a destabilized government in whatever country you're coming from that was most likely destabilized by who? The U.S. government and these war hawks, right? In the name of our homeland security and stuff like that. You have Republicans who truly believe that the KKK was right, that, black people are less than, that they're originalists, that we are 3/5 of a man, like the Constitution originally said. For the sole purpose, they are banning our history. They don't want it to be told how we rose up and fought for our rights to get here today. We are not over that hill yet, but guess what? We are halfway up it. We are a quarter way up it, and we're not going back down. Now, back in the day, you had the fiscally conservative. They cared about where our money was going. But if you look at it really, unemployment always goes up under every Republican president, or deficit and debt goes up under every Republican president, because the funding that they cut so that you save in the short term creates a long-term funding default. So therefore, we are in a fight for this nation right now. And I know some people don't like the two-party system. You don't have to have that two-party system, but that's the system we have right now. So instead of just saying, I'm not going to participate in it, try to change it first.
But by participating.
Correct.
Now, we've heard from you on as it relates to the Republican Party. Do you feel, and if not, why? If so, why? Do you feel that maybe even the Democratic Party is not living up to its creed and is swinging too much to the left?
The left. So I think the left is more in the public's eye, but we are still, we still have some very conservative people in the party that holds us back. We've talked about it on this show. You have the Mansions, you have the Cinemas, right? You have them in almost every General Assembly, City Council, all across America, right? But when it comes to the Democratic Party, I'll say our biggest fault is we are the party that is a big tent, but that big tent doesn't always get along, right? So we eat our own. And it creates our own internal fights as well, too, which stops us from getting progress done and pushing forward with that. You have individuals who want to take small steps, and you have individuals who want to build the house by the end of the week. So again, you have to learn how to balance that out to get things done. And sometimes we spend so much time fighting each other that we don't get what we set out to get done at all.
Now, you said we, meaning Democrats,
yes,
spend too much time fighting each other. What are some of the issues you're thinking and you're feeling that the Democrats fight each other over that really we should caution ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, you have all different types of things. I'll say policing, I'll say criminal justice reform. You have the means testing that happens every time. So Republicans say, how is this going to excite my base, right? Whereas for Democrats, you have a lot that say, how is this going to work with the Democrats? How is this going to work with the Republicans? How is this going to work with the independent voters? And when you do that, you create that splintering as well, too. A more recent bill that I talk about is the original fight over right to representation, right? You had Democrats who were like, yeah, housing's an issue right now, but what about the landlords, right? Well, yes, this isn't just saying forget about the landlords. The landlords have their own representation most of the time. That's what created this disparity. We want to make sure everyone has legal representation so that when they go in court, you make sure that their rights are being upheld in a true manner. So that was a fight that, again, I think took longer than needed, but it was a good showing that after those 3 years of going back and forth, we were able to get to a point where we overwhelmingly got support from the entire Democratic caucus, except for a few members. And we even got some Republicans to support as well, too. So again, it takes time, right? And sometimes the need is immediate, but they don't really move in a quick enough pace.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the part about the quick enough pace, because it seems like sometimes we do move very slow when dealing with some of the critical issues. Do you feel, which party, now this is a very biased question, but I'm gonna probably counter you, but which party do you feel really reflect, not now, well, yeah, we gotta go with now because we get into this election season, the minority community's views?
I say the Democratic Party.
Okay.
For the sole purpose of I see the policies that aren't getting enacted, that's introduced, that's being pushed by the other side. And again, whether it's federal, state, or whatever, you still have to work, unless you have supermajorities, you still have to work with the other side. So things may not be able to be the golden ticket that you want, but taking good strides towards efforts is the best way you can get some things done. I catch flack for thinking that way sometimes as well too, but I think at the end of the day, we have to do something sometimes. Yeah. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I'm looking at some of the policies or some of the issues that we are fighting here in just the city. For example, the heart of who I thought Democrats are, I would think it would be prone towards helping some of the needy.
Yes.
Everybody's not lazy who's in need. And
Correct.
I think that mindset is starting to resonate other places, as if they don't need this, they don't need the other. Why is it that only certain areas tend to be more secured as opposed to the other areas? If the Democrat, I set you up on purpose. If the is run by a Democratic mayor, it is overwhelmingly super majority Democratic city council, then why are we running into some of the problems we're running into with just our city?
So I think some are disconnected. They like doing handouts to people because it makes them feel good, makes them feel like they're securing votes. But then really when it comes to addressing, they feel as though they have to kind of cave to certain developers in order to get max out checks come election time. You have individuals who don't really understand the true struggle of what's going on in the city of Wilmington. When we have national news hit us with, Wilmington had the highest rent increase in the nation coming out of the pandemic, right? It was absolutely insane. You have people who are literally being priced out this city, and then you have a PR team that comes through and say, oh, but look at all the new development that's going on and all the new people coming in. That's great. New people's great. Guess what? Most of these places aren't at capacity. So yes, while this new development is going on, you're losing more people from the city of Wilmington. We don't have the growth that we should in the city of Wilmington. You have a mayor who won the initial race in 2016 by 234 votes, something like that. I believe if the person who was in second had won, we would have been in a whole completely different standpoint as a city, right? We may not have had as much nice development and everything like that, but I think we would have had more resources going to the community.
Guess who's not going to give you a check if you run? Since you're talking like that.
It's okay, because they listen, they actively worked against me last time, and you know, I take it as a badge of honor, because at the end of the day, and you saw this in 2020 when we had the protests, they weren't worried about people getting hurt. They weren't worried about any other businesses except for certain developers' businesses. That's why the police were pulled off the bottom part of Market Street and sent up to protect a different part, which led to businesses who've been there for years getting looted and stuff like that. I'm not making excuses for anyone, but again, a broken glass and a few stolen Jordans does not bring someone's life back, right? So if you want to truly stop that, change the system that took someone's life. And you may say, oh, well, in 2020, he wasn't even in Delaware. That was in Minnesota. That was in Alabama. That was in Georgia. That was in Kentucky. Yes, but then guess what? Lamont Moses was killed here.
Yeah.
Jeremy McDowell was killed here. Yeah. Yaheem Harris was shot here. You know, I could continue to go on and go on and go on about names here in Wilmington. We've seen Dwayne Brown assaulted by the cops, and it wasn't until we brought great public pressure for him to actually be fired. Because at first the defense was, oh, that didn't happen. Oh, it's okay. He didn't have his body worn camera on. So it's things like that we have to push back. But yes, you have certain individuals who should identify as Republicans. They believe in the Republican points and thinking, but run as Democrats so that they can win.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of out of time now, and every week I'm hoping we can bring something to you that you can begin to think and talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, talk to everyone who's 18 and above. That is the voting age in Delaware, am I correct? Yes. They should be registered. If you don't vote, you have no power. We have to put people into offices, not just one office, that really, really care for the community at large. We do want, this to be a diverse city where we have white, black, brown people living together, those who have the money and those who do not. But what happens too often is we get people in office and the powerful are able to give the right donations and keep the influence. Some of us who are working on this field, we see the pressure, can't even get help because you don't align with our thinking and you don't align with how we want it to be, the narrative to be. And I've learned to be quiet but I'm still going to continue to move, and I'm going to still be very strong, because there are people who are waiting to run again that we will be watching. And we're going to be very clear, whether you're black or white, I am not racist. I'll go either way. If you're not supporting the communities that I believe in, or we believe that is really in need of help, and you've turned your back before, you will do it again. So, Colby, that's all I have for today. Is there anything else on your plate?
Nothing else on my agenda.
Okay, listen, I hope you enjoyed the show today. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Colby Owens.
Until the next time.
Take care, y'all.
See ya.